Good evening, Mr. Love.
Good evening. Good evening.
Today we're here to talk about different leaders that we admire. Who have you selected on today?
I think as I do research and I have researched throughout my life, one of the leaders that I admire the most is that of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Great. So during this interview, we will examine leadership, the power held, and how conflict is managed by leaders. For my first question, Mr. Love,
Okay.
can you explain one way that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. handled conflict?
Yeah, Dr. King is known throughout his leadership tenure as a man of nonviolence. And that was the way that he led his people through the nonviolent way of resolving conflicts.
Great, great. And what do you admire about his leadership style?
What I admire most about his leadership style, as we all know, as we all have seen, have watched, there was times that being a leader, he was faced with some very tough situations. Life being put on jeopardy, life on the line, house getting bombed, and things like that. But in spite of everything that he was faced with, you never saw him get out of character. He always was that same patient, slow type of person that would not let what was around him affect who he was.
Yes, he was an exceptional person. And what would you have changed about his leadership style?
Hmm. What would I change about his leadership? I think one of the things I would have changed about his leadership style is maybe not being so soft. I know that sounds funny, but at the same time, I think that there were some people, especially those in leadership role at that time, that took his nonviolent approach as a weakness. They looked at it as a thing of, well, I know what he's asking for, and I didn't even know that it's right. But because of his way of leadership, he's not going to come after us in a violent way. They probably would have looked at somebody differently, such as your Malcolm X. They would have looked at him a little different if that was him, because they knew he was a little more violent than Dr. King was. And so Dr. King, because of his nonviolent way, because of that way of leadership, things moved a little slower than possibly planned. And it was because of that. I really believe this. It was because of that there were some things that he had a dream of. He never saw it become reality because he was murdered before it happened because of his nonviolent way of leading.
Yes, yes. And what are some ways Dr. King communicated within his organization?
He communicated, being a preacher. One thing about being a preacher is you got to know how to communicate with people. And that was the way he did. He was able to take his thoughts and everything and talk with the people in such a way where it was fiery, but at the same time, it was effective. Because sometimes you can be fiery with your speeches, but it will have no effect on people. But he knew how to take that speech of his and motivate millions of people. And this is the thing I like about it mostly. He was able to bring people of different race, different genders, different cultures together with his fiery speeches and with his ways. And I believe a lot of that comes from the way he was taught. Remember, he was a Baptist preacher, so he had those Christian values. But also, you must remember, he did a lot of studying of Gandhi. And the way Gandhi's ways influenced Dr. King a lot in this nonviolent movement leadership style.
Definitely. And for my last question, Mr. Love, how did Dr. King identify an ethical decision? And how do you think this affects Dr. King's engagement with his organization?
Dr. King's ethic, ethics really was the cornerstone because of his morals, because of his character, because of how he carried himself. People looked at him as a strong, trustworthy, and honest man. And they was able to glean off of those ethics of Dr. King. One thing I was always taught growing up in life is it's not how much you say out of your mouth, but it's what people see out of your life. And I think people could look at his ethics, look at his morals, look at his character, and see that this was a man of great wisdom. Although he was young, we got to remember he was a young man, but people looked at him as being wise way beyond his age. And I think that was a great effect, and that what caused people to cling to him and follow him without any reservations.
Well, Mr. Love, we certainly thank you for this interview on this week about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Thank you for having me again.